I'm Michaela Parker, founder and executive director for the Academic Data Science Alliance, and I'm here to welcome you to our next installment of our data science conversations. Today, we'll be hearing from Boston University and the University of Chicago. Now, if you're not already familiar with the Academic Data Science Alliance, or ADSA, we are a community of data science researchers and educators who take responsibility for a just, equitable future where data science approaches are thoughtfully applied in all domains for the benefit of all. I want to remind you that this is a series of virtual meetings that you can check out with this tiny URL, ADSA Virtual. You can also snap the QR code on the bottom of this slide and subsequent slides. That'll take you to our website where you can learn more about ADSA, our mission, vision, values, activities, events, and how to become a member. So with that, I would like to now introduce our moderator. Dr. Phil Bourne is the Stevenson Dean of Data Science, a professor of data science and biomedical engineering, all at the University of Virginia. His research interests include structural biology, bioinformatics, scholarly communication, pharmaceutical sciences, and many more. Previously, he was the first associate director for data science at the NIH, where he managed the Big Data to Knowledge initiative. I would call Phil also a super supporter of ADSA because he serves on our advisory board and he also chairs this year's Leadership Summit. So with that, I will turn it over to Phil.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. That was a very nice introduction, much longer than it should have been because it's much more important to hear from our two incredible speakers today. So I'm really looking forward to having this discussion. Our first speaker is Azer Bestavros. And he's from Boston University. He's BU's inaugural Associate Provost for Computing and Data Sciences and the William Fairfield Warren Distinguished Professor of Computer Science in the College of Arts and Sciences. He works closely with the Provost and with senior academic leaders and is responsible for setting up a lot of their programs. So we'll start with you, Azer, and really look forward to what you have to say. And then if there's a pressing question for clarification, then please put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll just go straight to the second speaker, and then we'll get into the conversation afterwards. So looking forward to it all. Fire away, and thank you for doing this.
So I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to share with the ADSA community all the exciting developments around data science at BU. First, let me say a few words about Boston University. BU is one of the largest private institutions in the US. We have over 34,000 students and over 10,000 faculty and staff in 17 schools and colleges, and with the sponsored research activities at almost $500 million annually. So with that context, let me talk a little bit about data science. The story of computing and data sciences at BU dates back to the 80s, with early investments in research areas such as artificial neural networks, high-performance computing, and with academic degree programs in computer science, statistics, computer engineering, information systems, neuroscience, and bioinformatics. Now, two notable milestones for data science at BU were the creation in 2010 of the Hariri Institute for Computing, which is a university-wide incubator to accelerate data-driven research in various disciplines. And the second milestone was the launch in 2014 of the Data Science Initiative, which focused on growing our data science faculty across the board at BU. By 2018, with over 100 million in research funding secured through Hariri, and the unrelenting increased interest from across campus for collaborations with data science faculty, and the explosive enrollments in data science-related degree programs, BU made its biggest investment yet in data science, setting out to build its Center for Computing and Data Sciences. So the Center for Computing and Data Sciences is a 19-story, 350,000 square feet of state-of-the-art iconic facility at the heart of the campus. As we speak, this remarkable building, which by the way is fossil-free and carbon-free, is rising fast, and we expect it to open by December 2022. I mean, the building is a bold statement about the university's commitment to growing its footprint in data science. As I like to say, the rising tide of data science lifts all disciplines. So around the same time, BU also made an even bolder statement with the creation of the Faculty of Computing and Data Sciences. This is what I'm here today to talk about. CDS, as we call it, is a university-wide, tenure home and degree granting academic unit that's designed from the ground up to democratize access to data science. Now, let me explain what that means. It means making data science accessible to a wider pipeline of students, accessible to faculty collaborators in a wider set of disciplines, and accessible to public, private, and nonprofit institutions who are not typically connected with data science, even though they stand to benefit significantly from accessing the research capacities and the talent pool in data science in academia. So the Faculty of Computing and Data Sciences will be the anchor tenant of that new building I was talking about, sharing it with our Math and Stats Department, Computer Science Department, and the Hariri Institute. Now, the organization of CDS as a cross-cutting academic unit under the Office of the Provost is really unique. And why did BU did that? First, let me note that CDS is distinct from existing CS, Math, and ECE departments where there's a lot of data science, obviously. CDS augments and complements this department without really transplanting them under a new school or college. Doing so is actually a recognition of the importance of preserving the established academic and professional cultures of computer science, computer engineering, and statistics, and also the importance of allowing data science to develop its own. Second, CDS is an academic unit that is tenure home for faculty who are appointed exclusively in that unit or jointly with others. This means that CDS is self-governing academic unit, not just a division or an institute that acts as an overlay to coordinate activities of other departments. This also means that CDS is able to recruit truly interdisciplinary faculty who identify more with how data science scholarship is pursued as opposed to what scholarship is leveraged by data science. So let me spend a few minutes to talk about where we are today. Over the last 2 years, CDS launched an undergraduate major in data science, an undergraduate minor in data science, as well as a PhD degree program in computing and data sciences. And the next few years, we expect to launch master's programs as well. Building these programs from the ground up makes it possible to develop curricula that adopt novel pedagogical approaches that are hard to introduce in well-established programs. For example, at the undergraduate level in CDS, rather than expecting students to take a bunch of standalone foundational courses in, you name it, calculus, linear algebra, probability, discrete math, etc., CDS adopted a spiral pedagogical approach that integrates and fuses mathematics, algorithmics, and programming in a way that makes students appreciate the importance of these topics and how they can be used in practice by also adding experiential learning into the mix. In terms of growing our faculty, CDS is focused on a number of broad areas that connect data science with STEM and non-STEM disciplines. For example, our faculty search this year covers various ways in which data mining, machine learning, and AI are connected to STEM discipline, as well as social sciences, health, and biomedical sciences. Last year, we were successful in recruiting 3 tenure track faculty, and this year we're actively searching for 5 more. In addition to faculty with 100% of their appointments in CDS, we are also joining forces with other schools and colleges to recruit faculty for joint tenure track appointment. A perfect example is a faculty Ngozi Okidegbi, who is joined with law school in tenure track in both departments. In addition to our cadre of tenure track faculty, CDS is also recruiting professorial teaching faculty. We recruited 2 last year and 2 more this year. Now let me spend a minute or 2 to talk about how faculty and students work together and how they connect with domain experts who are critical for data science to make an impact. The way we do this is by organizing our faculty in clusters that we call CDS hubs, with each hub focused on an area of impact that is aligned with an area of particular strength at BU. Currently, these are equity, sustainability, health, and civic tech. So how data science enables and impacts these areas. Each cluster connects CDS faculty and their students with experts from other departments, other research centers at BU, And these clusters work together on research, curricular, and co-curricular activities, typically in collaboration with external partners. A good example that puts all these pieces together is our Justice Media and Computational Journalism collab, which brings together faculty from CDS with collaborating faculty in our College of Communication and with external partners, in this case, media outlets like WGBH and Boston Globe and Intercept, etc. They engage in research as well as curricular and co-curricular offering. Now, CDS supports the work of its faculty clusters as well as experiential learning offerings with a team of professional staff who make up the CDS BU Spark program. The numbers there, you can see the number of students who actually participated in offerings through BU Spark. A good example of external partnerships that CDS is forging with industry is our, by the slide I just put up are examples of student work with external partners. A good example of external partnership that CS is forging, as I was saying, is our work with MassMutual. We work with them on a number of civic tech projects, as well as on joint efforts to broaden participation in computing. So with that, let me leave you with what one of our undergraduate students working in our Justice Media Collab said about the vibrant academic experiences he had in CDS. Thank you.
So thank you very much. That was indeed very impressive. I just a quick question to get some scope here. How many FTEs do you have within CDS itself? I mean, I know you said you had joint appointments, and counting those as whatever percentage and so on. What's the overall size?
So in order to start an academic unit with 0 faculty, BU had to do something very creative, which is to go get founding faculty members from other departments to help with governance and with hiring and so on. The faculty that are purely in CDS, in other words, 100% appointment in CDS, so far we have 5 of them. And the idea is to grow basically at the rate of 4 or 5 every year for the foreseeable future.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that. I now have lost my place in the grand scheme of things, so just bear with me a second. Okay, hang on. I'm totally lost here. I lost my welcome. Apologies. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Now it's my pleasure. I see that there's a question in the chat from Michaela, who's obviously in charge, but we'll put that to one side until we get past, let David say his spiel, and then we'll get into the questions. So it's a pleasure to welcome David Uminsky from the University of Chicago. David joined the university in September 2020 as a senior research associate and executive director of data science. He was previously an associate professor of mathematics and executive director of the Data Institute at the University of San Francisco. So thanks, David. Really looking forward to hearing what you have to say too. So off you go, and then we'll get into some discussion.
Thank you, everyone. And again, Azer, it's really exciting to see what's happening at my alma mater. I'm not saying I'm going to go back to school again, but it would be good to be a good student there. I'm delighted to be able to present to this group about what's going on at the University of Chicago around data science, and we'll get right into it. So, the Data Science Institute was really launched as a university-wide conversation, initiative, and eventual presidential lead to re-envision data-driven inquiry research at large across all disciplines and all divisions. In short, what was attractive about joining the University of Chicago was, in fact, that it was not, at the front of the market of launching academic data science. It's that it's had the luxury or pleasure to see data science in action for the past 10 years or so, acknowledge the opportunities, and really notice the fact that there's some serious cracks in the foundation as a field. And that right there, as a one-point statement, is some of the stuff that UChicago likes to look at closest, is foundational questions. And so we're working on a field building exercise here at the Data Science Institute, the UChicago School of Data Science being at the forefront of what we need to develop. And the way we do it through the Institute is these 3 main pillars of research, education, outreach. What you don't see up here, and I think maybe we've seen this puzzle piece maybe one other time from Mike Franklin and Dan Nicolai, which is we don't see the intersection of three Venn diagram that's traditional. It's a much more integrated, holistic approach to data science is the way the provost committee at the University of Chicago has really envisioned this. And it's a refreshing new take on the way to think about building this. So I'm going to get right into the three pillars. And instead of giving a very high overview, I'm actually just going to give you very specific examples of the kinds of work we're doing and stood up in the past 18 months or a bit longer. Research is the primary activity at the Data Science Institute. It is very specifically the field building exercise we think of, and that's thinking and capturing very ambitious, very hard problems that require multidisciplinary PI and faculty to get together and attack them specifically in a way that no one field would particularly be successful in solving them, as is currently viewed by my colleagues. And so to give you a sense of taste of what these multi-year deep research investments look like, the first three of them are listed here, and they're all starting at different stages. The most mature is a research initiative on the left called the Internet Equity and Access Research Initiative, priorly known as sort of Bridging the Digital Divide. This is frankly to look at the really hard data science problem of measuring, observing accurately, and then developing in concert with public officials policy that can genuinely affect this societal level problem of access to data. So at its core, it's an access to data research problem. It's inequitably addressed now, but it's really unknown how bad the problem is. And the approach taken under this research initiative is really a partnership between computer science, data science, Harris School of Public Policy, Crown Family School, and all of the minds that really can attack this problem holistically. What's exciting about a project like this, and is really representative of the types of work we're doing, is it must move to impact. And impact is not just a great paper in a top journal or conference, but for example, those colleges, city colleges, universities, nonprofits listed below that stand to directly benefit from the research, and it's done in real time. And so the research questions are actually, the weekly calls actually include City of Chicago officials in the research group. And that's kind of an exciting take on the way we think about research initiatives. The middle one is sort of a newer initiative started right now. It's actually in partnership with Will Howell and the Center for Effective Government. And I think the topic is quite clear on what they're looking at, but it's really difficult. And the individual tools of each field are not exactly scratching on their own, the right insight into the problem. And so we're really excited already at the preliminary work being looked at under the Data and Democracy Research Initiative. But again, really hard societal level impact problems of data and looking really hard at it. And maybe as a surprise for this group, although I think it gets said a little too often, is our third one actually includes the word artificial intelligence, even though they are part of those prior two. And this one really sort of leverages the unique position that University of Chicago has, not just with the storied history of science, but our partnership and stewardship of Fermi National Lab and Argonne National Lab. And this is a way to really, to paraphrase the quote, scientists will not be replaced by AI, but scientists that are leveraging the power of data science and AI will replace the scientists that do not. This is a paraphrase quote from person I'm forgetting right now, but in particular, the idea here is, what is the long-term use of AI in the scientific method? And we have a lot of really exciting starting problems there. And I think we're starting to see some core principles in that observation. This is a preview. We plan to stand up many of these research initiatives. They are driven by the faculty. They're driven by new hires in data science, but also existing faculty. And it's part of the unique research culture that I've grown to really enjoy at the University of Chicago. Our education approach is something that I'm very proud of, and I think uniquely represents the type of perspective we're going to have in our education. And that, frankly, is to say, you can't really graduate as a data scientist unless you work on real data science problems. And so I know that we've just priorly heard and know it's a value for this community to think about experiential learning. It's something I've been working on for 8 years. And we have integrated the idea, I used to call it practicum, some people call it capstone. I think the most accurate description really is a data science clinic, into the degree programs that we are running, both undergraduate and graduate programs. This is, again, in the spirit of thinking about real world problems. You can attack really hard problems at national labs that we source from. We work very seriously on social impact, nonprofit, and public sector problems. And ultimately, I think we gain a lot of value in partnering with industry projects. They're also very popular with students. And for example, we had a pilot of about 40 students last year take clinic. We now have about 45 or 50 students just in the winter clinic. And the demand and growth for this particular course is enormous. And we are having students that are not just data science students involved in these projects, as they can really benefit from some domain knowledge as well. But I won't dwell on the clinic because I think I've spoken prior about it, but it's really just an incredible way to actually understand how to take a student through a data science life cycle. One of the things we've also noticed in all our work with the community is, it's data science is an opportunity to re-envision our relationship with the South Side of Chicago and other areas that are underserved by data. When you reach out and work with community members, they are not platter serving amazing mature data science problems. So we have to meet all of our organizations where they are and find different places on the maturity ladder to think about data science and the work we can do. And this is just a comment on the slide that we are looking at many different methods of engaging with organizations outside the university at the level of data science that they're at, and take them along the maturity ladder that best helps and reinforces the mission of these organizations. We're working, it's top of mind, be working with these Neighborhood Network Alliance, South Shore Works, the Lost Boys. These are really incredible organizations that have really messy and hard data problems that are just, at the right intersection of mission and interest and research level. One of the things I'm also really new and proud about talking about when we think about journeying both from education into outreach is what does outreach really look like? And outreach means not just partnerships with nonprofits, but our other universities in our neighborhood. This one in particular, I'm very excited about. This is an engagement with a stood up MOU in the past year that I worked on with the city colleges of Chocago, where it was understood that one of the greatest demands for students in that area is access to data science education, or data analytics, or data engineering, and the gap in resources to be able to serve those students. So we formed a partnership between our two institutions that are focused on capacity building for our city colleges, pathways, and in particular, one of our flagship early programs is a joint preceptorship between the University of Chicago and community colleges. Traditionally, private universities like the University of Chicago don't necessarily have a long storied history with community colleges. In this case, they actually did, but many currently do not, including ours. And then thinking about what are these mutually beneficial institution building, infrastructure building, and mutually, as I said before, mutually beneficial opportunities, a teaching postdoc to develop the next generation of data science educators that very much understand how to develop diverse learners and students, a privilege at the University of Chicago. We're really excited about that particular program launching in the fall. This is our latest activity, which has just stood up under the funding of a funding partner here listed on the screen. I think a news announcement will be in short order from data.org, to be the center of a HBCU network working on how to actually disseminate at scale and develop sustainable methods of experiential learning at the intersection of data science and social impact. So building upon the knowledge of clinic building, but really focused on social impact, and finding partners on this committee that will actually develop these different modules in a way that are scalable to institutions that are not like University of Chicago. Really excited about the PIs that have been identified at each of these institutions. And I think we're kicking off shortly this work. I think this is my last slide, and I know I'm already over, so I'll just pause to say that we have a very ambitious hiring plan. It sounds very similar to what I just heard from you, so good luck. Where it is a lot of work to hire faculty in this space. It is for many years out, we'll be hiring at this level. We're looking forward to catching up a little bit and developing a PhD certificates, and all the other fun stuff that we might be doing here. So happy to move to questions.
Thanks, David. That was great. It was interesting. In fact, with your DSI, you have a a little different emphasis than what we heard from Azer and the CDS. So before we get into various aspects of comparison here, perhaps, and best practices and lessons learned, perhaps you could just say too, I know yours set up a little differently, but can you, David, indicate roughly how many FTEs you would say was sort of focused on the work of the Institute?
Yeah, so we're a lot of in the similar place as BU from what I just heard. We have done the initial aggregation of identified faculty that have been contributing to sort of the setup of data science. We have hired in this past year the first 3. Again, the plan is to hire 4 to 6 faculty for a relatively indefinite period of time. I shouldn't say that on a call like this, but I think the target is multiple dozens of faculty that are core to data science. This thing, one thing I did not scope out very well is where does this live? It was debated before I arrived at the provost level or in a division. I think it was a practical decision in the end to launch in a division, largely because of the ability to spin up degree granting programs due to the academic structure of divisions versus a provost initiative. And so it is beginning its home in the physical science divisions, joint housed by computer science and statistics, and very quickly looking for joint appointments in all divisions and all areas as it makes sense in a very similar fashion.
Yeah, that kind of leads me into the first question I wanted to ask, which is, it relates to the reporting structure, but it's actually more as it relates to students, is if I understand correctly, Azer, you said you're awarding degrees through the CDS, and David, yours would go through physical sciences, or?
That's right.
So, maybe I could ask both of you, perhaps Azer first, whether you feel it's an advantage or disadvantage to be awarding your own degrees with respect to how you're perceived within the institution and beyond the institution. So Azer, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's actually very important. So we are an academic unit just like any college or department. So the students from high school, if you think about undergrads, will just be applying to BU, and then they pick a college, they'll pick us, right? So they may pick computer science, which is in a different college of arts and sciences, or engineering, etc. So from the get-go, we are appealing to students who actually choose data science as opposed to computer science, because we do have all these other disciplines. One thing I can share with you, this is the first year we are looking at admission numbers, is that the makeup of the applicants is actually different from computer science, right? I can say the same thing on the PhD program. Our program is designed to build the students' knowledge in the areas that are more important in data science, as opposed to things like computer architecture or programming languages. And again, we see a very different profile for the PhD students applying. On the PhD side, they tend to be far more domestic compared to international, and both have a larger percentage of women that we saw.
David, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that it was really good to hear the different demographics. We just launched our first new degree in undergraduate data science in the fall. So we've got data, but it's quite sparse. The demand is enormous. The wait list for courses that we just stood up in the major are, sadly just vastly higher than we could serve given our in the build-up phase of resources for instructor and faculty. We are in many respects a little bit the obverse, though. We are homed right now as joint in physical sciences. Our appointments of our faculty will have one foot in one of those departments. They could have both feet, but they have the data science tag. I had to learn this structure a little bit at the University of Chicago, which is different. There's the college, and then there's the divisions. The colleges serve the undergrads. The divisions kind of loan faculty to serve the college, but they are completely different. The divisions are in charge of the PhD programs. And so given that structure, it made a lot of sense to be able to develop these degrees. So we had to go to the college from our division and present a new degree, which was gone through the process. And now that degree lives at the college, and we serve that degree. So that's what's nice about it, is we are seeing very similar behavior in terms of more diverse and more inclusive in terms of attracting students that wouldn't have traditionally selected STEM as their major. UChicago has this, whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, history of students double majoring. we imagine a large number of students single majoring in data science, but probably an equal number selecting that. And that's where we're going to be measuring the data very closely. Are we getting just math and data science majors, or are we getting psychology and data science majors, policy and data science majors? Then that's where we're also going to be looking quite closely in terms of our expansion.
I'm glad you mentioned this point. One of the attractive things about data science is they can minor in something else, right? Yep. And we're seeing a lot of interest in that, in addition to minoring in data science itself. Within BU, also we allow students to move between colleges. And one thing we have noted is that we are getting students from political science that transferring, this is an inside transfer, not applying from outside. So yes, I think the idea of having, or the data suggests that we are serving a slightly different population in a way.
I have to say I'm sitting on my hands here because I want to actually contribute what we're doing into the conversation, but that's not why we're here.
Oh, let's do that.
I'm just here to help drive you two. But I hope you do come to the annual meeting, because it'd be great to have some of these conversations in a relaxed form with not rectangular windows. But anyway, so yeah, that's really, you both focused. I changed to a different subject, but clearly one that I think in many ways the rate determining step is that the faculty hiring. You both emphasized what you're doing there and the numbers that you're trying to hire. And I was pleased to see that you look like you're getting pretty diverse hires. For us, this is the absolute rate determining step about how fast we evolve. And I suspect it's the same for you. And of course, we're all competing in one sense. So I'm wondering if there's anything you want to share about how you've gone about hiring that would be beneficial to the rest of us, or anything you want to say about the hiring process itself and the simplicity or difficulty. Azer, do you want to start?
Sure. I sort of hinted to that when I started by saying, when you have zero faculty, how do you hire new faculty in an academic unit? So we have these founding faculty members coming from across the university, and we just go through the usual process, posting the jobs and we identify areas. But then the voting on who to hire actually happens by these founding faculty members. One of the things we are seeing is the applicants, many of them are not really from the computer science or stats backgrounds. They are data scientists that come from all sorts of other fields. So that's one thing we see also, is the diversity of applicants. And maybe a related point here, which, because we are different, structured differently, I get a lot of questions about what is it like to join a unit like this, because it's not the safety and security of going to a department that has already been set up. So, and I think that's interestingly attracts a different type of faculty applicants who actually feel that they don't belong to either this or that, right? So they want to be somewhere truly in the middle. So that's the thing I can say is that in the interviews we have had so far and the calls I make to these candidates, many of them are very excited. That is actually becomes a differentiating feature. But also many of them are, asking questions, says, well, this is not typical.
So this is a double-edged sword where in some ways you really want to, out of necessity, but also desire, attract people who are not necessarily on the typical academic lineage. And yet that actually represents issues when they come for promotion and within a more traditional system. So I don't know, David, if that's part of
it's the conversation that's, listening to you, as I think you've taken what I think is the bolder step of going out and forming, a unit that has voting groups from very different backgrounds. The closest at the University of Chicago where that multidisciplinary voting happens is actually, they call them committees on X. So there'll be eventually the academic unit before a department will be the committee on data science. That will probably be stood up in short order after this round of hiring. It was the great fear by the founders of this particular institute is to protect the assistant professors and be able to attract the strongest candidates that we can in the University of Chicago, but also protect that expectations around tenure, so that we are putting a lot of our assistant professors strongly and firmly in their home department plus data science. The service load requirements are not any higher, but there's a clear expectation for the candidate from go on what tenure means. At the same time, in terms of, maybe Phil, you asked about ways to kind of maybe make some advances. We've always searched open rank. And so, and that because it's at that bulk, and if there are senior or mid-career candidates that are interested, which there are, those are ones that can come in without the worries of tenure. We can look more holistically at joint appointments across divisions, even partnerships with deans on final homes for senior faculty without worry of some of these tenure cases. And so I don't think we've borne out what our eventual story is and how we can attract people that really are some of these great fits for data science, but odd fits for any one home. I think after launching the committee on data science, that might be the place for that kind of appointment.
Yeah, actually, Torbay put into the chat a question that, as you both are speaking, it made me think of it, but it does relate to tenure, which you've touched on, which is this notion of valuing data science artifacts in tenure reviews. And I take that to mean other things beyond the typical traditional values of grants and papers, but things like developing reference data sets of valuing work on particular software that's put into GitHub and things like that. I'm wondering whether and we've actually developed a tenure policy that actually reflects that, and we can only go so far away from what the rest of the institution does, but we've gone quite a ways as far as we can go. I'm just interested if that's something, Azer, to start perhaps, that you see in your case as well.
Yeah, the great question. One of the advantages of starting a new unit is you can have slightly different definitions for what scholarship means and what service means and so on, without forcing the traditional departments or typical departments to change their own interpretation. So one of the very first thing we've done before even hiring our first tenure track faculty was to come up with tenure and promotion guidelines. Think of them as interpretation of the university's rule, because the university has rules. It's the usual things you expect. So in particular, and I'm happy to share, actually, I had a slide on that, the language we use in defining scholarship is inclusive of things like software artifacts, inclusive of collaborations where the faculty is not the main PI. Like, think about it. So we want to make sure that the faculty realizes that they're not going to be penalized for doing the collaborative work that is needed for data science. Of course, we are also looking for their own scholarship and all that. So, and how we define teaching and service in the context of data science, which is collaborative, and given our real focus on impact to society, we include things like, if you're going to do work for nonprofits and so on, that counts as service. Doesn't have to be just professional service. The tenure question is a difficult one. That's actually when I mentioned faculty have questions, that's what they ask about. And I want to say that because, again, we are different, we can do slightly different things. For example, the committee for tenure and promotion can be composed with faculty from outside CDS. We make it to match the scholarship of the faculty coming up for tenure. So, I mean, I don't want to take more time, but it's a very important topic, and we have to think about it before you even start anything.
Yeah, there's questions popping up in the chat about tenure courses, but David, what's your take on this from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about some of the main issues already on tenure. We ultimately, on the artifacts piece, we do get to borrow the fact it was not a bridge too far to acknowledge open software, from the CS department, how that's acknowledged, right? So open data platforms or new, the development of Mimic 3 and things like that. If you are the owner of a brand new data set, where I think the evaluation ultimately comes from, and I think this is transparently conveyed to every candidate and every faculty candidate, is much of your tenure decision-making comes from those outside letters. So whether it's a paper or sequence of papers or a platform or one of these data science artifacts, if it is what is bringing research prominence to your lab and your domain, it will rightly be captured in these letters. And I think there's a holistic picture that's looked at there from the University of Chicago. Being newish to here, I've only seen from afar and no tenure track cases in data science yet. So, I won't be able to comment on the specifics, but I know it is top of mind of the faculty discussions that we're having now.
Yeah, thanks. I'm wondering in terms of moving aside tenure slightly, but thinking about certainly joint appointments, which of course, how they get evaluated for tenure is an interesting question. You both touched on that a little. I'm wondering what you think about what it brings to the institution when you have these joint appointments. I mean, I'll just quickly relay an experience to set the tone for what I'm asking here. Is we did a joint hire with biology, and when I went over to talk to the biologists, they frankly didn't really have much idea what data science could do for them. And I didn't know as much about the research that went on in biology. By the time we'd done a joint search and they'd seen what candidates could actually offer, it was a whole different ballgame. And we'd really moved into a different place. And I wonder if, with your own experience with dual hires, and it sort of bleeds into the question of, how you decide if you're making joint hires and they've got a disciplinary flavor, how you choose the disciplines to work in. I mean, you've talked about some of that with respect to what I would just characterize as, let's say, responsible data science. But I'm just wondering if you can say more about the value of joint hiring or the challenges.
I mean, Azer, maybe you go first, since you're in you have a college of your own, you have a whole different take than joint, right?
I'll jump in. So I actually mentioned one of our faculty who is starting in September, and she's joined with law school, which when you think about it, that's as divergent as it gets, data science and law school. She does not have a PhD, she has a law degree, but she's on tenure track in both units. Now, why would law school want to do that with us? They want to do it because they could not get faculty like this unless we are part of it. So what I'm seeing is that many other colleges are looking at partnering with us in order to bring in data science to their disciplines. You think of it from College of Communication, College of Education, etc. So that's one reason it provides an incentive for our partnering domain, if you want, to work with us. And what does it bring to BU? It brings in a transformation, or at least the beginning of a transformation of whole disciplines at BU, right? Because it's very hard to get the very first data scientist in a department that doesn't have any, right? It's much easier when you say, no, this is actually part of the Faculty of Computing and Data Sciences. Yes, it's a joint appointment, but that's basically the community that they want to be with. So I think that's what I would say is the most important thing.
Yeah, David, you want to add?
Yeah, I just add very briefly to that. So it was already mentioned that it's actually an attractor. Our pools are richer for this opportunity, although maybe that feels a little contradictory to like worry of getting tenure. There was a genuine ask from the candidates around this stuff, having this opportunity, or really just making sure that that's part of the vision at the core, being multidisciplinary and collaborative. It's very much in the culture at Chocago do this, so it hasn't been hard to knock on those doors. We do have joint searches going on in addition to core ones for that reason. And it's the same thing that was just heard. We cannot get X in our field without a genuine affiliation to a major data science center, right? And so we've heard that, stood up those processes. For us, it's going to make the field defining exercise vastly richer, right? If we are just inside our own community trying to do this by ourselves, we're going to miss on very core issues. So, between the attractiveness of the opportunity, along with the richness contributions to research, this is why it's worth figuring out these appointments.
Can I add one more thing about the value of doing these joint hires is also in the curriculum, right? Because if we hire somebody who is also joined with, let's say, biology, whatever they teach in biology is probably likely to be something that we benefit from, and vice versa. So what it creates is opportunities for these courses to bring in students from different disciplines in the same course. So this crossover effect can only be, this is the only way to do it. I don't know how to do it otherwise. It's very hard for a student on their own to just go jump and take a data science class. But if the class is in biology and it counts for the biology major and all that, great, that's how you do it.
So this sort of an example of, in many ways, of change, and clearly data science is driving change in academic institutions. And Ria asked actually about other forms of systematic change, and you're both touching on interdisciplinarity that comes from these joint hires, basically. I'm wondering whether either you want to say more about the interdisciplinary nature of how this is playing out in your institutions, or other aspects that you see this being data science being an agent of change in higher ed. Azer, you want to start?
Okay.
I know I'm not asking you any of the questions that we had primed up, so sorry.
That's okay. These are great questions. This is one thing. Actually, I said something about the rising tide of data science lifts all disciplines. I mentioned that in my talk. I actually said that on purpose because when you think about interdisciplinarity, you know, who do you choose? And data science becoming more like the language, a common substrate, actually helps everybody. So somehow it becomes a catalyst for interdisciplinarity. It's not that data science itself is interdisciplinary. It's the way of thinking and the way of doing of data science becomes the unifying force for interdisciplinarity. It could be between even two other disciplines. Data science happens to be the language they use, if you want, along maybe with the data science in the mix. So I think BU believes that of all the possible ways you can catalyze interdisciplinarity, investing in data science will get you that. And we're starting to see it. To get a faculty in education working with the faculty, you know, in computer science and so on, that's easier than, let's say, two STEM disciplines that are very different.
Yeah. David, do you want to add?
Yeah, I do. So I actually appreciate the conversation and the question, because systematic change is, well, it was on the inbound of the interview. I was like, if that's not the top of mind, and system defined academic system, your local community, systems of public and private sector, they're all right on top. We have to take and organize our bets on what systematic change we want to make. At the core, just as Azer said, we want to just infuse data science across the university. The data-driven inquiry comment I made earlier, we really do want to revolutionize the way people think about their data in all fields, and the tools and ideas and new foundational concepts that are coming out of this sort of research center for the greater benefit of the community. We have means and pathways in for all PhD students to learn data science. So if you're a PhD student anywhere at the University of Chicago, there's going to be a way to access graduate data science courses to bring back to your home discipline. We think a systematic change begins there. Azer made a good point around teaching as well, right? So as we bring in and involve faculty from across the disciplines into the undergraduate data science major and other areas, the tracks we can develop are richer. We can think harder about these societal impacts problems if we have people that are focused in that area and studying that outside of computer science and statistics. On the systematic change part, it's kind of why I led with examples of what we're trying to do. We're trying to, frankly, revolutionize a relationship with public community colleges. And when we're done, if we can prove that it works and it's sustainable financially and academically, intellectually, I want every private sector university to rethink their relationship, a private university to rethink their relationship with community colleges through data science. It's an extraordinary opportunity to make systematic change. And I don't think the lift is too hard. When we think about who does Chicago want to partner with on data science, look where we went first. We went with a big HBCU network, because in many respects, and I'm going to say this as a new person in the University of Chicago, it can turn out I can do something not that good in data science, but it's going to turn out really good because it's at the University of Chicago. And so what I think the real work is to develop what is generalizable knowledge that is translatable, sustainable, and scalable as a useful education research module at universities that aren't just the University of Chicago and resource like one. And when we crack that nut and when we do that together, I think you'll see systematic change as well. So systematic change is really top of mind when we make decisions around what programs we launch.
Yeah, no, I think what you described earlier in your slides was just really impressive as to getting those programs off the ground. I think we can, and because HBCUs, for example, are such a vital part of what Azer is trying to do and trying to really bring the community together, I think keeping an eye on what you're up to and getting periodic reports, I think will be really, really valuable. So thanks for that. I'm thinking now just quickly about other types of partnerships. that, say, with private sector or non-profits, and you've touched on some of these things, but I wonder if there are other aspects of those relationships you'd like to bring up where you've had experiences that would be valuable for the audience. Azer, you want to start?
Sure. I did mention throughout that one of the things we want to do, also to introduce systemic change in that way, is to democratize access to data science. What do I mean by that? What I mean is to make data science work for the NAACP. We want it to work for local government, City of Boston. So one of the things we have done is create these partnerships with these folks and they absolutely love it. And the interesting part is there is a third party to the equation, because typically these nonprofits, they don't have the way to support this. But then comes in the partnership with industry. So when I mention Mass Mutual, that's a local insurance company. They love what we have, and it's a data science company of the first caliber, because there is a lot of data science in what they do. They are very interested in helping us work with other parts. So there's this interesting ecosystem of partners who are in it because they like what we do, and partners who are in it because they benefit from what we do. So I feel like this is different. It is not about find a company to give you a grant. It's really different. It's creating that ecosystem, I think, and they love what we do, so they keep giving us new problems. So these relationships keep going on. Like when I mentioned WGBH and Boston Globe, that's basically what they do. They come back to us as well. Here's a bunch of stuff we want to look into prisons and how they do this or that. Put the students on it, do whatever it takes, and then they come into it and write their stories.
And then they hire your students.
And I hire students. Actually,
it's not a bad thing.
I'm glad you mentioned this. What we found is that by doing this, the student is more likely to consider jobs like this than if they didn't do it, right? It really is about, how do you get the student to work for a nonprofit? And I feel like this is happening. The kids love to do this because they have done a little bit as undergrads, and they see the change. They see how it in the front of their eyes. An article comes up in the Boston Globe. There's nothing that can speak to an undergrads more than that.
Yeah, that's awesome. David?
Yeah, so I know Michaela knows I'm going to say this. The partnership with external entities has been something I've been working on for a really long time. So it was really nice to get a redo at the University of Chicago, take all the good stuff I learned and do some of the stuff I didn't learn very well. So we also, again, back to the centering conversation, that the University of Chicago does a lot of great things, but it doesn't own all the great data sets in the world. And if we don't, then we got to find our partnerships with groups that are using data in different ways, and that makes the field building exercise richer. So with that in mind, I was tasked to stand up an industrial partnership. It's a 3-tiered process. It's very engaging. It's a very holistic partnership. It's not on just a project or two or on a recruitment event or two. It's like a 7 touch point engagement. And what's nice about it is we brought this to the market, and there is enormous demand at the highest level of these partnerships that we just had to cut off the conversation and stop. And so one of the things that is nice is the scalability won't be a problem with these when it comes to funding and resources. They come very well funded. The benefits are very well measured by the companies, and hence why we're at very close to 100% yes on every pitch. Now, in that case, though, we get selective. We think about geographical differences, different types of problems that we'll learn from, and who makes a good founding partner from an industry perspective. And we've definitely found those, and that's exciting. I had to not blow the announcement on who our founding partner set was, so I had to delete that off my slide, but that'll be coming out, I think, in the next few weeks. But the demand on that is very large. Just as important to us, though, is this work that we have been working on for a very long time in the social impact sector. Now, I'm not saying the social good sector, I'm really saying the social impact sector, because what we're focused on is, of course, positive impact, but it is the work that makes change that we're focused on through data science. So we've been, had a really nice partnership with Wendy Schmidt's 11th Hour project on bringing really hard, very serious social impact projects to the university, and there are extraordinary research opportunities and change opportunities for both our students, faculty, and researchers. That is also something that has a very long tail of opportunity. And then right now we're rate limited by students. Now the student demand is growth and trained. We're going to be able to bring on at the scale of maybe a steady state of 40, 50 companies and maybe an equivalent number of social impact and government partners. The hardest part, which isn't for this call, I think, is how do you get all the paperwork done? And that we'll have to talk about at the meeting over drinks, but it is possible to work with your legal department to make this all work. And I'm very happy to share how to do that. Please here.
All I can say, it's going to be a lot of drinks, but that's good. I'm actually going to have to sign off because I'm beholden to my provost, as we are a school in our organization, and I have a meeting with her right now. However, Michaela's willing to stay on for a bit longer if you two can. There's a question, I think it's a really important one, about the demographics of incoming students. So if you could just hang around, at least answer that, and perhaps anything else that comes up. And I'll just sign off by saying thanking you both so much. I learned a lot from this, and I really look forward to having time to really get into depth with some of these issues that we're all grappling with, and you've presented so nicely. So thanks very much. And
Thank you,
Kayla, back to you.
Thank you, Phil. Yes. If it's okay with David and Azer, we'll just stay just a couple more minutes. Okay. Because I did want to get to this one question. We had it queued up, but I'm actually going to combine them. So one is about what does the enrollment look like in some of your new data science classes, but together with that, I'm interested in what the backgrounds are of the students who are coming in, and are they different than kind of your traditional CS or STETS student? In particular, we're still seeing a real lack of diversity in leadership positions in the tech industry with respect to women and marginalized populations. So I'd love to hear how at least the incoming student population is looking.
Yeah, I hinted to that when I was talking about the incoming undergraduate class. I only saw the statistics about the applicants. The BU has gone through the early decision 1 and 2, and now we're to general admission. So we'll see. But in terms of the applicant pool, it's different. It's more female, and there is more diversity, even though the numbers are small, but they're bigger than what we see in other departments. The one data I can bring is, the interesting one is transfer students, because that we have for the last year. So these are the students who chose to come to CDS from another academic unit, another department at BU. And interestingly, that group has a much higher percentage of underrepresented groups. And it's really interesting. I don't want to make statements, and it's only a very small sample, but that's an interesting experiment, right? I mean, you're already here at BU and you decide to switch, and somehow it's not representative of the population, it's more underrepresented groups. This may well be because of the projects we choose to work on. So we are doing a lot of work, as you had heard, equity, justice media, and that stuff goes out. It's in the BU today, it gets published in W, and the kids see that. A year and 2 years ago, that's what they want to do, things to do with the environment, sustainability. The last thing I would add here is, I talk to some students and say, I don't want to be a software engineer. That's, they want to learn data science, but they don't want to be end up working as a software engineer. So I think there's a lot of these students that may want to use data science as a substrate. I think somebody put I think Ria said something about liberal arts. It is. Data science is the liberal arts of the 21st century, because it equips you to study everything else you want. So to me, I feel that that's why the demographic is going to be different.
Yeah, very good point. David, do you want to take that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does help to have a strong perspective on this, and that strong perspective turns into a strategy. And I think I just heard a very good one from my colleague at BU. I grew up in the math world, which is not exactly a world that is focused deeply on things like representation until more recently. And I think it proves out that there's environments you can choose and make when you start something new that can actually build on what doesn't and does work. And so we really are thinking, when we think about who's a data scientist, who are we trying to become and train the next leaders in data science, what does that community look like? It's top of mind that we're thinking about all the practice that gets that one small chance to start something brand new. It's rare, like we don't often get the chance to start a new field that has an enormous market already. And so it's also a great responsibility that we don't end up like what the field might look like in software engineering now, right? And so to do this, it's a lot of intentionality. It is not just the intention put into the curriculum and the practices and the inclusive practices of teaching, but it's in there. It's also, as to the top of mind that Azer made, things like clinic experiential learning, authentic learning experiences is another important phrase. These are now things that have been studied in the literature to actually attract and retain students that are more diverse in the STEM field. And so they're built in, and we're leading with these types of ideas. In the end, though, you can do great things in the classroom. We got to make sure the entire environment and ecosystem and value proposition is very clear in terms of welcome and inclusion. I think that's very clearly met also by the things you do that are co-curricular. And those are very, top of mind issues that we're deciding. Ultimately, when you think about the major initiatives we're rolling out, I think we're leading with our efforts, right? With our partnerships with the community colleges, or work with the South Side. We don't need to talk about what we want to do. We should just do some things that really lead with what makes change. And that's always been my take on it, because I think it's really hard to get these things right, to be honest. I grew up from unwelcoming to reasonably unwelcoming environments at times in math. And I think from that alone, we've learned some things as a society or as a culture in academia to do better in.
Yeah, absolutely. Great perspectives. And it sounds like both of your institutions have lots of those kinds of very practical, hands-on, working with the community projects that really draw students in. I'm recognizing now that we are very much over time, so I want to respect your time and also our audience. I want to thank our audience for joining us, and thank you, David and Azer, for your perspectives. Lots of good information and lots of good nuggets for us to discuss, hopefully, at the Leadership Summit in March. To everyone attending, I just want to remind you that we will have another data science conversation on Friday with Bowie State and Winston-Salem State Universities. And then next week, a week from today on Wednesday, we have a session on community-centered benefit sharing and new data equities, speaking about bringing marginalized communities into the conversation about who is collecting their data and what benefits do they get from that research. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Azer and David. It was very nice to have you here and hear all about your institution's work in data science. And I hope everyone have a good rest of your day. Thank you.